Hey guys, welcome to Contest Prep University. I'm Joe Klemezeski, and we are so lucky to be doing a feature with Chet and Natalie Nichols. So the reason I wanted you guys on is because I know the NPC and the IFBB classes, the rules, the criteria for posing are always changing. And you guys are not only IFBB pros, but you're also very well-respected judges. So that's what I want to talk about today, if you guys are okay with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I did hear that there is a conference coming up in, I believe it's Pittsburgh, perhaps, where Sandy is talking about some new criteria changes. And of course, we have the new wellness division. So what are you guys hearing in terms of changes for this year before we get into the actual individual criteria?
Well, are you talking about the wellness division or just in general?
Well, let's start with wellness, but then yeah, we'll go through every single change that you are aware of for this year.
Okay.
So with wellness, competitors can go and look at the European wellness division, and that's almost identical to what we're going to have, aside from the fact that we don't want the teacup arm off to the side in the poses, and that's really the only change as far as posing goes. But the suits are going to be the same as a bikini suit that any bikini competitor has, because that has the criteria of the V front. I know a lot of suit makers are making wellness suits. They don't have to do that. A competitor can compete with the same bikini suit. Really, the only difference is that typically the wellness suits don't have connectors, so they would just be an all fabric side, but that's not a requirement. So if you like the bling on the sides, go for it. It's not going to affect the judging in any way, no matter how many people are out there saying it. It's literally okay. Just wear what you want to wear.
Good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chet.
Yeah, I was going to add too, one thing that I really like about the wellness division, the criteria they put out there is really specific compared to other divisions in the past. I mean, they, again, just mentioning the hand movement or the hand placement is one thing you didn't find in the other divisions and stuff. Now, are they going to change that coming up? And for the other divisions, really don't know yet. Once they have that big conference, then it'll kind of start trickling down to national judges, then local judges, etc. So we're really kind of waiting to see exactly what that is. So it might be a good follow-up down the road.
And with the specificity, every time a new division has been added historically, it's always to create some inclusivity. So if there is a body type or a division that just seems to be languishing and they're trying to bring more people into the sport, they have expanded by typically moving further and further and further away from bodybuilding. And I believe from figure to bikini now to wellness, again, they're looking for a slightly softer look, but also there's this one criteria of larger legs, bigger quads, that kind of thing. And so I know a question a lot of people's minds are, is that because it's specifically looking for a little bit less conditioning, your legs can be softer, or are they looking for actual more muscle, like women with these gigantic quads and hamstrings?
So I'll take that one, or at least start with it. Basically, if you can envision like a female soccer player's legs, like a soccer pro, her legs are very muscular. She's typically going to have like a petite body, but she's got these like massive muscularly legs, and they don't necessarily overpower her frame. She doesn't look odd. She's just got a lot more muscle down there than the average woman does. And so we're not wanting to see softness per se. Really, the level of leanness is going to be between bikini and figure. You're going to have to be at least as lean as bikini. And that's a huge misconception that a lot of people out there have, that I'm not able to get lean enough for bikini because I hold a lot of body fat in my legs. So wellness is for me. But that's really a big mistake. You may win going into the season because it's a new division and people are all over the place trying to figure out what exactly they need to bring to the stage. So somebody's going to win. If you have a competition where only people who have that softer look show up, one of those is going to win. Do not mistake that for that's what we want, or that's what the division is, or that's what you need to bring because Susie Q came and won looking like that. You need to have at least as much muscularity in the lower half as bikini, but we want you to have more for wellness. slightly more developed, I would say, at least for my taste as a judge, slightly more developed upper body than bikini. Not at all as much as figure. We're not going to want the capped shoulders, but you do want a little bit of muscle in the shoulders. The tricep area is going to show really well in the back pose. And then, let's see.
Well, I can take it from there,
Yeah.
because you obviously saw what she looked like when her last competition, when she won her IFBB Pro Card. And when she went up for the bikini class, the feedback is she should start her pro debut as wellness, because she fits the criteria right now. And of course, one of the things that kind of got marked down in bikini is because she had a more muscular top, shoulders, and things like that. So that was what the IFBB judges were saying, that is the look. So we do have a good firsthand experience of what it should look like.
Yeah, and so if you're a bikini competitor out there and you have had consistent feedback from judges that say, bring down your glutes, or, you know, do a little bit less volume on your legs, you're probably in line for a wellness figure.
Well, she did an interview with somebody, was it from Europe?
Yeah.
Yeah, Europe, who at first she used the term, this is going to be fat bikini. And then she realized after she saw some, some updates and stuff, she goes, "Ooh, I was wrong. This isn't fat bikini. We got to still have that muscular frame there." So it does kind of fall between figure and bikini. And I think first off, be kind of looking at like bikini top, a little more shoulders and arms, figure bottom for the most part. If you can kind of come close to that criteria, you're going to be kind of there in the beginning. But as you know, it's going to take a couple years to really weed this out.
Yeah, and it will evolve.
Yes.
Probably in the midst of a show, you'll see it evolving, but definitely from show to show to show, people are going to start getting a better idea
Yes.
of what they're supposed to bring to stage. So hopefully we'll see the physique start to develop the way that they should. But the first year is going to be very difficult and kind of a rocky road for competitors and coaches out there
And judges.
trying to figure out they're trying to figure out
Yes.
what to bring to the stage. But yeah, the judging's going to look all over the place. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of talk out there about the judges don't know what they're doing, but we can only judge based on who shows up.
Well, one of the things I give the NPC a lot of credit for is when they set some criteria, I have seen judging panels literally take people who don't fit the criteria and just move them out of the way. Whereas in a lot of the other organizations, it's just that the best physique wins. So you can take somebody who clearly doesn't meet that criteria, but they have a tremendous physique, and so they just default to a win. And I really don't see that in the NPC. So I think you guys do a great job with that. But what I would say is there could be some misconceptions because, as I said, historically, people have created these new criteria, new divisions just to be more inclusive, trying to get a softer, less muscular look. And so even the terminology wellness, moving from figure to bikini to wellness, looks like you're just trying to get, soccer moms out of the audience on stage and say, hey, this is, as long as you got a great physique, you're going to look good in the gym, you can compete here in this new division. But you're saying, no. Do not forget that conditioning is still going to be a divisive criteria.
Got to think about this too. So when we put wellness in there, what is that going to do to bikini and what is it going to do to figure? And this is one of the things we're going to be talking about, because there's really a close line between bikini and figure right now. So I'm thinking you may see bikini girls actually go back to being a little more softer and a little more muscular, or a little less muscular, and the figure may have to get up a notch a little bit on their hardness, a little bit more muscle as well. So you got to create that space there. So this is not just going to affect the new division of wellness, it's going to affect the two outside ones, bikini and figure as well. So that's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out.
Trickle down and trickle up.
Yeah, trickle down, trickle up.
I know the wellness name really has caused a lot of confusion out there. I mean, I've seen that all over, from people hating it just because they think it takes away from bodybuilding, or people that think it means just a healthy physique, just somebody that looks like they've lost a lot of weight, or like more like a transformation kind of a category. And that's not what it is. It's definitely going to require a lot of hard work, great genetics. I honestly think genetics is going to play more into this division than any other.
Agreed.
I agree. That's one of my thoughts. Is it's interesting, and I'm not criticizing, but I'm curious to say that, you know, we've always classified based on how much muscularity, how much muscle, and how much conditioning. Now we're going to start saying, okay, now we want this particular body part just bigger or allowing it.
Yes.
I, for one, I mean, if guys had this, I may make a comeback because my legs are twice as big as my upper body. So, you know, bring me wellness for guys, and I'm in.
There you go. That's good. I didn't think about that. That would work.
We have that. It's called classic physique.
Well, let's move on.
With wheels.
That's right. You gotta have wheels for those babies.
Yes. Well, let's move on to that, because I think this is going to be a definitive answer to a lot of those questions for wellness. I love having you guys on. Really appreciate your time. Classic physique was one of those more recent changes as well, where people said, okay, look, we've had bodybuilding forever, then we had men's physique. What's something we can do to kind of put in the middle there? And I think a lot of people took that classic physique as a misnomer for, you know, you can be softer, maybe not quite as big, but what has it really evolved to in the minds of judges like you?
That's a
question.
Great parallel there, though, with wellness.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Because, you know, it is between, you know, men's physique. Some people say just men's physique with legs, but that's not necessarily it either. But it's more of something that's more aesthetically appealing, a little more tapered weights, a little more, you know, broad shoulders and things like that. That X that has gotten lost in bodybuilding over the years. And when you think classic physique, they look softer back in the days of Arnold and all that kind of stuff. But you still have to have today that level of hardness, that leanness, you know, the muscles popping, but you're just more, you look at that and you say, oh, that looks good. These guys don't look bloated or anything like that. They are well conditioned. That little waist is there, and those broad shoulders. So the muscularity needs to be bigger than men's physique, but still not as big as bodybuilding. Just, I guess you could say, a little nicer on the eyes, I guess, for most people. And it's interesting you bring that up, because when classic physique came around, you know, that's when I was really, you know, still working on my pro card, keep my pro card in in men's physique. And I did some of my posing with Gary Udit. And we had a bunch of guys in there who were pros too, classic physique guys, men's physique guys. And he literally went down the line for looking at the men's physique guys and say, okay, you're too big, go get black shorts. Go get black shorts. Yeah. Go get black shorts because, you know, you're too big. Because they were trying to taper down men's physique at that time too, because they thought it got too big. For the first year, that kind of worked, because the bigger guys in men's physique, you know, they were winning, but they kind of got knocked down for a while. But it kind of came right back to where it has been the last few years, that the bigger guys in men's physique is still winning too. And now we're seeing classic physique get even bigger than they were when they started, because kind of like she said, it evolves. You know, the higher ups, you know, Sandy and all of them, they can try to get everybody in line with the same way of thinking. But by the time it gets down to those lower level judges, the local judges and stuff, they're going to judge still based on what they think works the best. And that's where we can get to another topic here in a little bit later on about judging trends. And we'll discuss that in a little bit.
Yeah. Just for classic physique, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to add that I see it as, when I'm looking at the guys on stage, I see it as more like a throwback to the classic era of bodybuilding. So nowadays, the bodybuilders are massive, way bigger than you saw Arnold and the best of them on stage. And so we're looking now at the classic physique guys, and their frames are pretty much like the old school bodybuilders.
Just more leanness, more cut, so to speak.
Yeah, and what I was going to say in classic, what I recommend to clients and just people who question is, you know, as you said, conditioning still has to be there, but I think those of us who have competed, we all know that when you're trying to get that last % of body fat down, and you're really getting, you know, the grainy glutes, all of that, you know, size does suffer a little bit. And even if you have enough time to kind of rebuild your food intake, as I like to do, there's still a difference between, you know, hey, if I could just stay 1% higher, if I could just keep those last 3 or 4 pounds on, obviously you still look amazing, and body fat is still 4% or lower, but it still does allow for a lot more fullness, flowing muscle belly look.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
And
it's
much
good
more
advice.
pleasing on the eye.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Chet, you said let's talk about posing trends as well before we get into some of the other divisions. Let's talk about what is happening in the judging panel world.
Yeah. So if you look at it, there's really two things. Most people, coaches, competitors, whatever, focus on the criteria. But right now it's pretty darn vague, you know, except for wellness and whatnot. And people try to follow that criteria, but the criteria is not always what wins, right? Because you can go to different areas of the country or even different shows, and you can take the same 5 people to different shows, and they may place differently, even if they bring the same package. Because maybe one panel is looking for something a little more harder, and another panel may be looking for something a little more softer. And let me use bikini as a good way to describe this. If I have a competitor who's going to a show X in about 4 or 5 weeks, I'm going to go back and I'm going to research the previous shows that the winners, the competitors who have won there, okay? And who showed up, because it all depends on who showed up. So I'm trying to get a picture of what that panel is looking for, because a lot of times the panels are about the same, maybe say a judge or 2, because the judges, they're bringing local judges and whatnot. And so that's the fixed panel. So if she's going into the show where it looks a little more softer, well, I'm going to kind of keep her soft, all right? Because that's what that trend is in that show.
It's strategic thinking.
It is strategic thinking. So 6 weeks later, she's going to do another show. Now, I already know in the back of my mind that show she's going to need to be a little bit more harder, because I've gone and done the research and I've looked over the past years of how they've placed and how they've done. So maybe those next 6 weeks, I'm going to try to maybe drop a couple of pounds and make sure she has a little more hardness by the time she steps on the stage. So you can't get in this line of thinking that you got to be at this level of softness or this level of hardness all the time. It really depends on the trends of that individual show. In a bikini, they really don't talk much about shoulders and stuff. It's not in the criteria, anything like that.
It just says not capped.
Yeah, not capped. But when you go see them on stage, if you've got a girl with some developed shoulders, and I'm not talking balloons or anything like that, but nice developed shoulders, and everybody else on stage looks the same, but she's got a little bit more shoulders, 9 times out of 10, she's probably going to win that way, because we're trying to see that a little bit. And this is kind of a point that I elaborate a little bit, but if the glutes are the gold standards from the back post or bikini, in many instances now, if everything else is equated, shoulders are now becoming a little bit of the gold standard in the front. Again, if they're not overdeveloped, you got to see a distinction between the shoulder and the tricep. Not talking separation or anything like that, just some distinction. If you got that on there and conditioning is good and posing is good as well,
you're
balanced, then you're going to do well. So you got to really take those things into consideration.
You made a couple really good points there, Chet. And number one is, you know, people do have to realize this is a subjective sport, and
very much so, yes.
in a class where, you know, the difference between first place and fifth place could be this tiny, you know, where even a fifth place person may be getting a first place vote here or there. You know, literally, it's down to fractions, like gymnasts and other Olympic sports that are judged, you know, with a 10, a 9.5, and you're aggregating all of these different scores. And so absolutely, you know, the top 2 or 3 people may have a great argument for a win, but it's still a judging panel. It could be, you know, the luck of the draw where you were placed numerically, and that's just where some judges saw you from a little bit more this angle. So I love the fact that you guys have said that it's just absolutely still, you know, the luck of the draw, but you have to do your homework and you have to know the criteria.
Yep, absolutely.
So piggybacking on what you're talking about, that the fact that you may have a 5th place competitor get some first place votes just because it's that tight of a competition, that's exactly why it's super important after your show. I don't care if you placed first or last, to go and get feedback from every single judge, whether it's a show where they allow you to do it right then and there on the spot. Some of your local shows will do that. Or if you have to go and get feedback afterwards with email, do it to every single judge if you're allowed. And typically the larger shows will have a person assigned for a division. Yes, always email that person, but you can still at least attempt to email the other judges on the panel if you have their names or their IG accounts. And I would always suggest doing that, because I'm going to see something completely different if I'm at one end of the panel and Chet's at the
Yep.
other end of the panel. And oftentimes I've had someone as first, he's had them as maybe sixth.
Right.
And at
Absolutely.
the end of the evening, excuse me, if he's in finals and he's come and sat down by me, and now he's seen from my perspective why my person that I had first actually did win, and he had him as sixth, because they look completely different. So his feedback to you is going to be way different
Correct.
than what I'm telling you you need to do to bring your package up. He's going to be looking at you and thinking that you've got all these problems in the world, when in actuality it was just the angle.
Yeah.
He just saw you from a different angle, so he didn't see everything that I saw.
That actually happened, I think it was last year, because in our region, since we're married, we have to sit on opposite sides of the panel. So we can't be communicating back and forth or anything like that. And this did happen where I was on the right side and I saw this girl proposing was more flattering towards my side, and me and the guy next to me had her like at first or second, where Natalie and a couple of people on her side had her like fifth, sixth, or whatever. I'm like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? We were having this argument, and then what happened, I went to her side over there, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
You know, because I can only judge what I see on my side. I can't judge based on what I saw 5 minutes ago or on Instagram or anything like that. I have to judge what I see at that time. And that can be kind of frustrating, because there's been people who I know had a fantastic physique, but they didn't pose right. They didn't show it right. And I had to judge it that way. And I'm thinking, man, if they just did this, they could have got that first spot. So it can be frustrating for judges.
There's some responsibility for everybody in this. And that's why I love to see when judges will take the time to flip the lineup, move people around a little bit more. I know it's a long day for everybody, but at least for that reason alone, because I too have had clients, sit on one side of the stage and end up with first place votes from that judge and literal last place votes from the other side of the stage. But the responsibility for the poser, for the competitor, is to understand that, and wherever you're standing,
Absolutely.
maybe you need to angle yourself just slightly, so at least you're addressing physically the center point of the judging panel. Maybe even cant your body a little bit more occasionally.
Correct.
For that other judge down there. I mean, that's going to help everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit another point there. What we do with our competitors actually is when we get them in the poses that we kind of like, we will literally go and take pictures center, right, and left, and see, how they look in those different poses and stuff. So, and if it's a show that we go to with them, we're out in the audience saying, okay, now switch A, switch B. So they know how to angle to get the best advantage based on who they're positioned to. Again, that goes along with the strategic thinking that you always got to be planning for the stage, not just the physique, but you got to plan for your performance on the stage. And I tell you what, if you do that, the judges are going to see it and you're going to score better.
And so that A and B that he was talking about would be like, for instance, different front poses.
Correct.
Perhaps we have one that no matter where you're standing, you look great from all sides. Or we have one that you just really look bomb to the left, but to the right, maybe not so much. Well, if we see you're standing by a competitor that looks great from your good side, and you're standing in the one that you just look pretty good to everybody, we're going to have you switch to that one that's your amazing side. So we're playing up your strengths right there.
Correct.
That's what you guys do as coaches, you're saying.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it makes it easier.
But we do that because, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
because of our judging perspective,
Yes.
we know that we've got to make sure that every judge there is getting the best shot of them. And so
You guys
that's
are like the New England Patriots. You got your own secret video.
That's right. Well,
Communication.
got the earpiece in.
Yeah, the earpiece going. No, but I mean, that experience as judges is what we like to take to all competitors out there, because if you can do what we're talking about, even talk to your coach about it, it's going to make the judge's job easier to score you based on your strengths if you can show them appropriately. Because just like I said, judges see these competitors year after year after year. They know some who have good physiques. And they get frustrated just like we do when they're not showing it on stage. So if they can do that, it's going to make their job easier and they're going to get a better placing.
I will say, as a tip of the hat to judges, I have promoted shows for 15 years. I judged shows for 15 years. And until you have sat on a judging panel as a competitor, you have no idea, and probably should hold your tongue with any criticism. When you've got, no matter how many competitors are up there, when you've got really, really close calls, I mean, sometimes you're spending so much time on a close call that you just don't even have a lot of time to score other people. And I hear many times competitors say, well, gosh, the judges never even looked at me. And, you know, trust me, they are. You know, they see you from the time you get on stage to the time you leave, but that's just how difficult it can be to judge.
And to that effect, sometimes the fact that as a competitor standing on stage, it appears that the judges aren't looking at me, that actually is not always a bad thing, because typically, you know, we've got about 5 competitors up there at any given time that we're comparing. And if I know my number one, without a shadow of a doubt, that person's my number one competitor there, I don't need to keep on looking at them. Now I'm trying to decide between everybody else. The same thing with the number 5. Okay, this person's way out of their league. They're the number 5 up there. So now I'm trying to look at all the people who are
in between,
more mediocre, trying to decide between them and give them a fair shot and give them the highest rating I can for the physique that they brought. But so it's not always that we didn't notice you. It's that we already know where you fall in our rating.
Well, let's talk about. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let me add that one more thing too, because this is very important. This applies to everybody. One of the problems we see competitors do when they're standing back behind the lines, when maybe we're judging the first, 4 or 5 people and they're behind the lines out there, they get a little relaxed, move around too much. Let me tell you, if I've got my first 5 figured out already and they're not done yet, I'm looking to the sides now. Because I want to go ahead and get a good view of the next group of people coming out. So therefore, that's going to help me, assess the next group. So you need to stay crisp, sharp, and everything, just like you are being compared in the call out when you're standing on the side, because more than likely you're being compared over there as well.
Right. So let's transition over to figure, because we've covered wellness and bikini a little bit. So any changes that you see with, Chet, you already mentioned that with wellness, it may require figure to alter a little bit or evolve. But is there any top-down directives from the national judging criteria panel?
Not yet, but there should be some coming, because you talked about the conference and whatnot. We're really looking forward to hearing that, and I'm sure that our regional chair is going to be kind of communicating that with us as other places. There's a lot of people kind of jumping the gun right now. Oh, they're going to do this. Oh, they're going to do this. Well, wait, okay? Just wait till that comes out from the top brass up there and see what's going to happen then, because you don't want to start getting too much misinformation out there by gurus who think they know what's going on when they really don't. Because I have an idea what's going to be looking for, but it's just an idea. And another judge, she may have a different idea, or somebody else may have one. So be patient with it. It's going to be coming out pretty soon. And when it is, then we have that final word to work on. Until then, just keep working on your physique and make sure, if you're in prep right now, make sure you're losing well and everything like that. And just focus on that aspect of it. And when the criteria comes out, then you can start making your adjustments. Because you're still going to have to be conditioned. You're still going to have a good base. You're still going to have good posing. The little tweaks they may make, you'll have plenty of time to do that.
I actually differ from that a little bit. I don't think that there's going to be a different directive coming out. I think you'll just see little moderate changes happen as people are scored, because you'll have the mix of the wellness people thrown in there. And likely you're going to have a lot of crossovers. Some figure girls are going to be wellness. I've heard of a lot of that on the pro level, that a lot of figure girls are going to now come and compete as, which is the advice that they gave to me, to compete as a wellness competitor. So it's all yet to be seen, but I feel like it's going to be a very slow evolution of, you'll see what this turns into. So maybe figure will change just based on what we're seeing come out with wellness, but nobody can know exactly what that's going to look like, since we haven't had the wellness competitors come out there.
Correct.
And Natalie, what do you think the biggest mistake is that figure competitors make? I have a lot of clients, and so many competitors out there are shooting for that IFBB Figure Pro Card. What is the biggest mistake they make?
So I've got 2 on those. I think primarily for your figure girls who are true figure girls and look great as a figure competitor, those people, it's almost always a matter of posing. They're trying to look big, so they're opening everything up out here, trying to stretch those lats out, and they literally are shrinking themselves to the judges. It does the opposite that you want it to do for the judge's perspective. But another thing that I see often is all of your girls that have had a massive weight loss, coaches want to throw them into figure. And I haven't quite figured out the reason for that, but it almost always puts them in that perspective that I was talking about, where you can automatically tell your last place. And I think that's unfortunate because I feel like it's a disservice to the competitors, and we have no choice as the judges sitting there. If they don't meet the criteria, we're going to have to not choose them as the winner. But I feel like that there needs to be a more thorough search from judges or from coaches and competitors, looking at the criteria and see which one your physique as it is now most closely associates with, and enter that one. Don't just pick one because you like that one and enter it, because you're entering something for us to sit up there and judge and critique you, and that means picking apart every little thing about you that on a normal person is fabulous. These are great looking people that we're saying all of these things are wrong with you.
Do you mean over dieted as in thin, or they didn't quite get lean enough?
No, I mean your people who have had, who were obese,
okay,
perhaps, and then had a very large weight loss. So oftentimes you have the ladies with the loose skin that they're having to glue down into the suits because they've had really fast, massive weight loss, sometimes with a weight loss surgery or sometimes just with diet. But it's putting them, I believe, into the wrong division.
What would you say to them as far as where they should possibly go for their first time competing?
So I think, wait for that. Slow down with the weight loss. There's no rush to the stage. The stage will be there. Most of that loose skin is happening because they're losing too fast. Because somebody told them, that a great motivator is getting on stage. But along with getting on stage comes all of us, 5 to 7 to 9 people sitting here picking you apart, when maybe you just should have waited. You did a great job with the weight loss. You're just not ready yet for an actual competition. That's not a transformation group. If they have a transformation division, enter that. Or perhaps I feel like bikini is a better place to start for those people in some of your novice divisions, and they won't look as out of place.
Well, and she's a good example, because the first goal we were thinking for her was bikini, but we didn't set our sights on that specifically. As she got leaner and stuff, we noticed the shoulders come out more and things like that. So we kind of made the determination about 6 to 8 weeks out which division she's going to do. And that's the advice I would say. Do a proper build in the off season, do a proper contest prep, and see where that takes you, especially with these first time competitors. You don't know what they're going to look like when they're stage lean. We have no idea because they've never been there before. So let the prep decide what division you're going to go into. Don't make that decision right off the bat, because you're almost cutting your legs out from underneath you right from the beginning, and that's not a good thing. So be patient with it.
Sometimes you're pigeonholing and trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and then that competitor is left wondering, well, what can I do to improve? Well, you could improve much faster in a different division, perhaps.
Correct.
So, don't just assume that you need to be in this division because Joe Blow at the gym said you look like a figure competitor. See if you actually have that type of a frame.
I remember those conversations, Chet, when you said Natalie, is probably going to be right in between. You said, as I see her getting leaner, she could still possibly be too big for bikini, but not quite as muscular as we want for figure. And you were right. She was pretty much right in the middle, and it forced the judges to kind of make a decision that then you guys learned from.
Yeah, and that's what we did. Her first show, we put her in both bikini and figure, and everybody said figure. She still did good in bikini. She got second or third in the open class, but she ran the show, won everything in the figure. So
it's always nice when judges say you look way too good for this division. That's not a bad.
Love that. Yeah. Exactly. It just means you're in the wrong division. You got a fabulous physique. You're just in the wrong division. But I will say one thing for figure. I see this more in figure than anywhere else. That it seems like a lot of the figure competitors, if they have good shoulders or they have good legs, they try to emphasize that even more.
Yeah.
And that's a big mistake, because then you're taking away your balance. I hear people all the time say conditioning wins. No, conditioning doesn't win. Balance wins, because if you don't have a strength, then that means you don't have a weakness, right? So you're balanced. I mean, there were girls on stage who had better legs than her. Maybe some had better shoulders, but that was a highlight for them. Natalie won because she had balance. She wasn't over-conditioned. She didn't have too muscular legs. Everything matched up. It's a perfect example of it. So focus on that balance. I mean, especially figure. Focus on balance. If you see something that pops out right away, you might need to work on either bringing it down or bringing the lagging body parts up, that strength doesn't pop out to you. Because in the end, balance is your strength. Because you can be over-conditioned for anything. You really can.
But you can also sometimes camouflage those very large strengths or weaknesses with your posing. And that's definitely something to consider. If you've got a posing coach or your regular coach just telling you like, dang, your shoulders are amazing, put them out there. No, that's not what we want to see. I mean, that's great for your photos or Instagram or something, or bragging rights, or, you know, going to the grocery store. But on the stage, that's really a downfall.
Well, let's wrap up by putting a spotlight on Chet. Let's talk about the difference now between men's bodybuilding and men's physique. So you are an IFBB men's physique competitor, and the criticism, I would use that term lightly, but the word on the street is men's physique has just turned into bodybuilding in board shorts. You just got to be as big as ever. You got to be, you know, shredded. It's all about the abs and the width, the shoulders, the pecs. What do you say as a judge is the best thing for still somebody who wants to dominate in bodybuilding, and the difference in men's physique?
So wants to dominate in bodybuilding, the difference in men's physique. Okay, so what Gary has said a couple of years ago, we need to bring men's physique down, because basically we're looking at classic physique with shorts on. And they tried to do that, but you know, it kind of, you try to get the criteria for the top down, but the trends start from the bottom up. And it didn't play out well.
It didn't take.
Yeah, it didn't really take. So it did for the first year, but that was about it. So the judging trend is still that. Basically big, massive, you know, just have your legs covered up, so to speak. I would still say slightly less than classic physique, but there really is a fine line between the two. You can still, to this day, see somebody go dominate the stage in both men's physique and classic physique. And, you know, it's not the way we want to see it, but that's the way the trends are right now. Eventually, it may catch up, and it's going to take judges to really focus on and doing that across the board to make that happen. But it's not there yet. You know, you still are, that upper body is still about the same. And if you are want to make the transition to classic physique, just keep those legs and working, and don't worry about hiding them with board shorts. And even the leanness, the definition is really the same. Men's physique is supposed to be a little bit softer, but it's not. Now, like all divisions, what looks good on the local and national level may not be really what they're going to be looking at the pro level. Because a smaller guy in the local levels, if he is really lean and cut, he can still beat out a bigger guy. But when you're getting to the pro level and in the higher tier pro competitions, man, there just really isn't a lot in between there. There isn't. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Can't sugarcoat it.
And so one thing to keep in mind is that you can totally excel at both. And I hear a lot of competitors get kind of nervous or maybe mad at the judges if, like, say, Jack Black went out there and won his men's physique class, and he also won his classic physique class. How is that even possible? And I've seen that with, you know, figure girls and physique girls, or figure and bikini. And the audience is really confused by that. There's no way they'll say that this guy can meet both criteria, but there's your posing. That has a lot to do with that. The way that you pump backstage has a lot to do with that. You can still go out there and meet the standards and win your class if you're the one with the best physique out there displaying it the best.
That is a really, really good point. And I think that's one of the things that does happen with men's physique is, you know, women have a lot more, I think, option with the suits, you know, depending on, you know, the cut, the bling, that kind of thing. Whereas, you know, for men's bodybuilding, not so much. But then when you get into the board shorts, it really does make a difference. The pattern, the cut, the tightness versus kind of the wide legs. But then also, it really does make the smaller waist and the wider lats and shoulders just dominate. You don't have your legs necessarily, your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, to make a big difference. So it really does bring that waist to shoulder differential in. And I think that does confuse a lot of people who think that it looks just like bodybuilding at that point.
Sure, it does. And I want to add one more thing too. When my first competition and when I won my pro card, I was literally the smaller guy in first class, but I was the most conditioned. And I had a really good posing coach, Gary and Peter Gordon. They helped me with that, and I had balance. But that physique would not carry well in the pro level, even though it did extremely well getting the pro card, which is why I took 2 to 3 years off to really build up my upper body, specifically my shoulders. And even when I won my pro card, they said, oh, your shoulders is pretty much your weakness. You bring those up. 3 years down the road, it was your shoulders are your strength now, because I took a lot of time to build that. But the point is, just whatever you win your pro card in doesn't mean that physique is going to do well in the pros. Take some time off to build up before you jump right into something 6 months later.
Well, I really appreciate this, guys. What we didn't even talk about is not only are you IFBB pros, and you guys are obviously well-respected judges, but you own USA Physique. So as coaches right there in Boise, Idaho, and I'm sure you've got clients all over the country, maybe all over the world, you're entrenched in the sport at every level, and what a great resource. It's amazing. I've loved getting to know you guys, and I know we met several years ago, but specifically spending a lot of time this year, you're on the radar. I think a lot of people are taking note of what you guys are doing in the industry.
Yeah, well, it's a passion. We live and breathe it.
Yeah, we do. I mean, this is pretty much all we do because we love it. We talk it, we breathe it. But being judges really has opened up our eyes to a lot of things. Not just to help our competitors, which it does. But I want to make a point about this too. We don't judge shows. We have competitors in. So anybody who tries to reach out to us, you're not going to get the judging advantage from that. Yeah. Where the judging comes in to help is that we can tune you to what you need to be. But that is important to point out there, because we don't ever want to give that impression, because that's not true.
And I know how limiting that is. Once I started working with hundreds of clients at a time, that's when I just had to say I can no longer judge shows. It's just not even worth trying to decide who's going to be at a show I'm going to be judging and that kind of thing. So well said, guys. I know you're going to run into that problem eventually, but just your foundation as judges has to be immensely helpful to your clients.
Absolutely. And we really love it too. I mean, it's just one of those things that kind of evolved and whatnot. And a lot of it kind of started for coaching, is seeing people kind of year after year not improving, and that's, again, another topic that we need to address, one of these days. But, it just has really opened up our eyes. You brought out something. Until you sit on the judging panel, you really don't see the things, because when you're judging 100, 200, 300, 400 people within a couple of days, you can kind of get some blinders on it and stuff. And you really got to focus on what you're doing, because sitting 3 rows back makes a difference of what you're seeing on stage than at a judging panel. That was the biggest thing that I took away, is I could not believe the difference 10 feet closer to the stage would do.
Yeah, let alone being in the back of the auditorium where I often am, with clients. So. All right, well, guys, this has been amazing. Natalie Nichols, Chet Nichols, thanks so much for being a part of Contest Prep University, especially as a feature. I think this is going to go down as one of the most definitive topics we've done. So your expertise is well appreciated by me. And for all of you guys watching and listening, thanks so much. We'll see you next time in Contest Prep University.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thank you.